Here we go. Right. Recording has now started. So in that case, I'm actually going to go back one just to say, welcome everyone. This is our Power Apps session about Microsoft Power Apps. I'm Jordan Montlake. I'm joined by Tristan Broom. So let's now go into the agenda. It's a fairly simple agenda. We're going to go through, kind of the highlighting points around what is involved in bringing Power Apps to you. An important part of that is the relationship between Microsoft and Complete IT, and also yourselves. Then we're going to look at the Power Platform, two of its components, Power Apps and Power BI, and then we've got space for Q&A at the end. Now, the Q&A as part of this Zoom call is live. If you do have questions as we go along, feel free to submit those. We'll be keeping an eye on them. That way we can collate them all and sort of run through them at the end. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hopefully enabling some understanding, maybe increasing some understanding of what Power Apps are, how they link in with Power BI, and why this whole picture is just so important. So in that case, let's kick off. So these relationships, as I spoke about, I've got them in three parts here. One of them is Microsoft, then there's Complete IT, and then there's yourselves. And it's a reason that there's these three parts in this relationship. So first of all, what does Microsoft bring to the table? Microsoft is here to provide the infrastructure, the platform, the component services as part of the full Microsoft ecosystem. Now, we're only talking about, really what is a small part here today. But when we talk about the Microsoft ecosystem, it covers, the Azure cloud services, cognitive intelligence, data storage, data lakes, and SQL databases. It also covers productivity, Word and Outlook, and that very typical productivity suite. In addition to things that we're going to talk about today as part of the Power Platform, data, automation, augmentation. And Microsoft provide this huge ecosystem that is interconnected. It's one ecosystem. And the reason that we provide that and we work with partners such as Complete IT, who are gold partners, is because Complete IT then bring their technical understanding and their understanding of their clients to make the best use of that ecosystem, to decide and to advise on which tools are going to provide the solutions that address organizational challenges, concerns, and goals. What is it about the Microsoft toolset and what parts can be brought together to provide value? And lastly, we have you guys. We have the people who make use of these solutions, these platforms, and you are a really critical component. Microsoft has made a purposeful change over the last good few years now, that it's about providing the tools and partners providing the experience and the knowledge, because no one wants to have to run their business in line with how a product is brought to them anymore. And we're going to cover this a few times as I go through and speak. It's about ensuring that the solutions that an organization uses, that the people who form these groups are making use of tools that help them do their job, that work the way they want to work, rather than having to force someone to, mold themselves to an off-the-shelf product. And this really is a strength of the Power Platform, and especially of Power Apps. So we're gonna go through, how this three-piece relationship model works, and how everyone can bring their strength to the table to make sure that all the solutions that are created and used are representative of the need. So when I talk about the Power Platform, and I'm going to say the word power a lot, as you will notice, it's mentioned a few times on this slide. This is a low-code platform which enables the bringing together of all parts of an organization. It's data, it's actions, it's augmentation, it's insights, it's understanding, it's intelligence. But whereas a few years ago, this would have required, a team of people and specific app development and, 6-month cycles. this platform has been created to significantly shorten the time to the creation and innovation, but also to really reduce the risk involved in these projects, in the creation of tools and solutions. And we're going to look at a couple of these ones today, so PowerApps and Power BI. And as I'm going through, I'd like you all to think about where your data is that you store. How is it collected? How do you turn those data into actions? How do you turn those actions, if there's intelligence, if there's insights that can be generated. So there are 4 components in the Power Platform, and I'm going to rush through this very quickly. Power Apps is about application development. It's about creating the tools that can be used by individuals, by human beings, to view data, to accomplish tasks, to carry out actions. We then have Power BI, which is about advanced analytics and generating insights that are used to make decisions to affect the running of an organization. Where are your trends? What's going well? Maybe what's not going so well. 2 other sort of solutions as part of the Power Platform. We have Power Automate, which is about the kind of augmentation and automation of repetitive and logic-based tasks. An email comes in, maybe a thing gets generated, a pop-up, a calculation is made, etc. And then Power Virtual Agents. You can think of these as kind of chatbots, but with the huge investment of Microsoft's intelligence infrastructure behind it. What is the use of being able to have a conversation, to have a back and forth with an intelligence that can answer questions, direct to resources, not just for external customer facing questions and queries and Q&A, but also internally. Maybe your internal teams could make use of an intelligence which can tell them where certain information is, or even carry out actions on their behalf. These 4 areas sit on top of what we refer to as Dataverse, Microsoft's global scale, flexible, extendable, logical data infrastructure, which we treat as the central hub for an organization's data. This allows us to do great things such as the AI builder for the creation of specific AI, pattern and model recognition, as well as connections to external sources. We know that a number of organizations have got maybe on-premise infrastructure or a multi-cloud strategy, and Dataverse and the Power Platform allows us to bring all this information together to really crumble down those silos, and ensure that individuals and organizations really are empowered to make the most of what they have, to provide their customers with those great experiences. So when I talk about Power Platform, this is what I'm referring to. So, at a glance, how does this kind of get made up? What's an example of, how do these pieces fit together? We always start with data. It really does form that foundation. It's why we treat Dataverse as a foundation, because you need to have the data to have the information, right? Information is data with context, and insights is information in trending. So, it doesn't matter where that data is from. If it's from, an SAP system, maybe you have a dynamic CRM, or it's stored in other areas, other cloud platforms. We have this fantastic capability to bring it all together. And in bringing it all together, we can start to do analytics. How are certain products or services trending? What is your, your customer insights, your customer satisfaction, your maybe internal operations efficiency? How long do particular processes take to complete? Just looking at this as data, as Excel spreadsheet outputs, and it can be quite hard to spot those trends, even with conditional formatting or whatever. But Power BI, as an example, allows us to really isolate and interrogate, and therefore surface these insights to show you what is going on. Once you have those insights, once you have that information, you can act on it. We can change business processes, or we can have applications where you can then make those changes. If a certain thing reaches a stage in a process, do you want an app to say, well, okay, here is the condition check. We can supply that, visualize it to a human being, to a user, to a manager, to a team member, and they can then take action. Or actually, as we may come on to later on, we can actually offhand that to an AI to make that decision in real time. But automation is about shortening the human links in a chain. It's about the tasks that are done over and over and over again, maybe by a human being or by another system at the moment. But if it crosses the Microsoft ecosystem, if you want to make an email appointment or a Word document or send an email or a reminder or a task or an authorization, all of these tasks that usually would take a human being to do every single step can now be automated. And it's on the back of acting on the data, and it's on the back of these insights and bringing this data together. So, that is the Power Platform at a glance. And just to kind of reiterate the breadth of what we're going to talk about, so I don't want anyone to think about, it's just data, it's just sales data, right? Or it's maybe it's product information. The data that you generate and the actions that you can take on the back of it and the tools that the Power Platform enable spread throughout the Microsoft ecosystem. And a great example of this is it's spread throughout Office and Microsoft 365. It goes into OneDrive, to SharePoint, the ability to kind of publish and to embed and to enable people to take action wherever they are is a huge force multiplier. And we're going to take a look at a kind of few of those examples. But just take a second to look at this screen and maybe to think, well, okay, there are certain tasks that I do today where I go from one of these assets to another one of these assets to another one of these assets, and wouldn't it be great if I could do that all in one place, or even automate those steps? So yeah, so that's that's what we have here. And also, whilst we're on this screen, I also want to say the integration of Power Apps and Power BI into Teams is phenomenal. I'm not sure how far along many of you are in your Teams journey, but the ability to embed applications in Teams to make that practicality and that productivity available to teams to work together, to do their own things is just unparalleled. And once again, is a true force multiplier in making these tools available. So I've said Power Apps a few times, and just to make sure we're all starting on the same level, when I talk about Microsoft Power Apps, what I'm referring to is an application development platform and a method to very rapidly iterate and deploy and share applications to the line of business. No longer are we talking about these huge, very heavy application development cycles where by the time an application reaches the front line, actually the organization's moved on. The requirements have changed. We can be very, very rapid, and by relying on the experience and the maturity of partners such as Complete IT, they bring their experience to the development of the applications, and then the Microsoft ecosystem enables them to very quickly push those improvements, those changes, those evolutions out to you. In addition, you get all of the advantages of Microsoft's continual innovation and continued investment in this platform. Once you are using Power Apps, every time Microsoft makes improvements, whether it's capacity or capability or functionality or integrations, you're able to take advantage of those as soon as they're available. Which is a really, really powerful capability. If I can get my words out. So we kind of see three levels of sophistication here, and those are highlighted on the screen. First of all, we start with applications that are sort of built to do specific tasks, right? Maybe it's stock management, maybe it's sales tracking, and if it's healthcare records, for example, an application that shows data that goes to and from a database, that is what is contained here. That's the first stage. That is an application for the manipulation of data or for the viewing of data. Next up, we have looking at the breadth of tasks that an individual role takes on. Not one person often doesn't just do one thing. So therefore, maybe they need a suite of applications or a suite of embedded applications where, one application can be built to another. They do one thing on a mobile device, but actually maybe they go to a laptop or a tablet, which then, the bigger screen allows for more functionality and perhaps allows us to scale across that. And next up, we have truly an immersive set of applications and functionality and capabilities, wherein an individual can see not just their tasking, they can see what their colleagues are up to, they can see the advanced analytics, and all of this is contained in their applications, which are rapidly iterated to reflect the work that they're doing. If a business process changes, if the logical nature of a set of tasks changes, that can be pushed to them in near real time as your organization, as your teams want to make those changes. Those can be reflected on the front line. And just to break down these silos, to reduce the number of times that an individual has to travel back and forth and swap between apps, or copy and paste information. We are reducing it down to the tools that are required for that individual really to competently do their thing, to put it in my terms. So that's kind of our 3 levels of and you can start at any point, right? Maybe you're already in step 3, maybe you're in step 1, but the distance between step 1 and step 3 is a very, very short journey. So what goes into a Power App? So we have a mobile Power App here. This is the Auto Glass one. If you read up on any Microsoft case studies, you'll find that this one comes up a lot. And that's because it is a really great example. And part of that is it works on any platform. So there is, if it's phones or tablets or laptops or desktops, it takes the capabilities of that device and enables you to use that device to its full capability. If you have pen support, for example, on a mobile device, or if you have laptops with specific functionality, fingerprinting, etc. The Power Apps are able to link in with what that device has and present that capability in an integrated way. The ability to share an application. So, if an application is brought into an organization and someone goes, well, actually, I can make use of that as well. It's a very easy share. We compare it here to like sharing documents. If you guys use OneDrive or SharePoint, you can go, okay, I need to share this. If you have the permissions, you go to the share, you add that user group, that role, that organization, that individual, and it can go to them and they can get a hold of it. We come back to this point around integration, around not having to swap between applications all the time. A Power App means we can build in Power BI, we can build it into Teams, or have Teams chat functionality embedded in a Power App, as well as your data, your documents. If you need to access SharePoint whilst you're using an application, we can build in a file repository then and there for that use, fully authenticated, all secured, all built into the Microsoft infrastructure. And then once again, we talk about the great benefits of partners, this experience, this professional capability. If there are pieces of custom work, if there are specific workflows or logic that need to be developed, then we absolutely rely on partners like Complete IT to develop that extensibility. In addition, so there is an excellent design experience for Power Apps that partners can use to enable this rapidly iterative, very low risk design model where they can make changes in a very user friendly environment, and make those changes, deploy those changes, low risk, high speed, either from templates, for example, that maybe have been developed by Complete IT before, or it's a brand new application because it's a brand new need. As we talked about in the Power Platform overview slide, the connectivity. The Microsoft ecosystem is vast, but we know that not everyone keeps everything in their Microsoft estate. So the Power Platform has this huge library of connectors out to loads and loads of services. It's growing all the time, and it enables this integration service wherein it's not a custom integration. We're not relying on a very specific piece of code. You know, Microsoft maintains a list of connectors. We work closely with a number of organizations globally to ensure that our partners, their clients, and your customers get a seamless experience, no matter where the data or their services are. Another great advantage of building on top of our Power Platform and our Dataverse is the use of the standardized common data model. It's a great example of how we can, how bringing data together is so important, but also really, really easy. It can be shared. It's why the connectors work so well. And we talked a moment or two ago about the ability to deploy very, very quickly, to rapidly iterate. If your organization changes, and maybe you can think of examples in the past, if your process has changed, or your metrics may have changed, or your terminology changes, how far behind have you had to lag in your tools before that is represented on the front line? With the Power Platform, as soon as the new solution, the new application is made, it can be deployed, made available, everyone's devices updates, and then it's there. It's then instantly in use. I can see a question from Darren in the chat actually about an example. We don't have any interactive examples in this webinar today, but I'm sure that Complete IT can get in touch. We find that examples are best used when we have specific industries in mind, when we know there's questions or scenarios. We don't find that generic examples sort of stick as well. So I'm sure Complete IT can help you. And Paul, the connector list is online. I can't recall off the top of my head, Datto, but I would hope it's available. Yeah. Okay. This is a very American slide, but I quite like it. Creating at the speed of innovation. Microsoft is investing heavily in its infrastructure, in its capabilities, in its functionality that it makes available globally on its platform. And as soon as you are using Power Platform tools, as soon as that new functionality is available in your region, and the UK is always at the top of the deployment lists, you get access to it. If it's a new piece of intelligence, a new cognitive service, a new way of displaying data, of querying information, of notifications, of authorizations, of tool intelligence, connectivity and integrations, you get it. That is part of the investment that Microsoft makes in the platform, and one of the huge benefits of investing in this platform overall. It means that when you are doing this automation, the more you use it, the more you connect, you just get all these benefits in time, in capacity. And also, you don't lose any of the integrity, as we'll come on to in a second. The governance, all this security, the authorization, it all stays together. You can rapidly make these changes, and no longer are you fighting your tool set to provide these products and services to your customers. And Microsoft rely on the experience that Complete IT get in dealing with their clients to make sure that that experience is then shared. Everyone gets these benefits. So yeah. Now, maybe some of you on this call today are quite techie. Maybe some of you less so. But here is the layer, or the layer picture of what brings a Power App together. we know some people are not all in the cloud. We know they're still on-prem. We know some people have multi-cloud strategies. And before bringing all those things together in a set of applications designed for me as a user, highly complex. But the Power Platform and Power Apps allows complete IT to work with you to define your needs. And then the platform is able to bring those tools together, that data, that validation, that security, that governance, and bring that up to a level where now we can make use of the designers, the rapid iteration, the deployment, to provide those applications that are going to be valuable without having all the concerns and the project risk of, well, I keep my data in these 3 separate areas, but have I got to start from scratch and bring it together every time? No. The system allows you to put the mapping in place, to bring the data, the insights, the intelligence together, and then what we do is make changes on that. We change the interface, the terminology, the routing, the logic. It doesn't matter where it comes from. Now we're just dealing with the outputs. And it's a really powerful picture. I'm not going to go through every point on here. I am going to say that Microsoft has a fantastic governance and security record. If you want to go and take a look at the Microsoft Trust Center, our GDPR sort of certs are all on there, our penetration testing results, our red team tests, all of our global certifications and standards. We truly are a leader in ensuring that whilst we make these systems easy as possible and as quick to use and to deploy and to share, this is enterprise grade governance for everyone. It doesn't matter the size of your business. It doesn't matter how many users you have. You get this security. It is all authorized users, organizational protection, identity management. And it's built into the platform. We're not, sticking in at the top level or, trying to weave it in certain areas. It is from the ground up secure, and you can do your compliance if you have regulation, safety, data retention policies. All of that is built in to the Power Platform. And we talked about how it's, organizations of every size, but it's also every vertical, every industry. Now, there are some big names on here, but I just want to really take a moment and stress and reiterate that this is for every organization size. Chris, I'm not sure if you want to jump in here for a moment.
Yeah, definitely, Jordan. Yeah, I think you're exactly right. There's some really high-profile global clients on this slide, but obviously, as you've explained throughout the kind of the slides to this point, this is technology that could be applied to clients and industries of any shape, size, and the like. So we've certainly seen an uptake in terms of clients taking on board projects, and there are probably some obvious areas to kind of look at in the first instance, probably things that businesses have the most challenges in. So like stock maybe being one of them that you kind of referred to earlier, Jordan. And I think it's that initial entry into picking a kind of an area of the organization that you do find challenges in. And then once you're absolved into the platform itself, then you will then start to consider other options that would be relevant to the organization in terms of other efficiencies or effective processes that you could then put in place, really. So yeah, couldn't articulate it more in terms of saying it's from the very largest, as we can see on screen here, and spreads across every other size of business and organization out there as well, really. So yeah, it's truly scalable.
Absolutely. And as Tristan said, it's one of these, I always put it in terms of organizations and individuals have needs for things. There are tasks that you do, there are things that you carry out, and I always think of those in human terms, in business terms. What is the objective, what is the output, what do we want to do, because then we can look at the solutions and tools available to address that, right? Is it a data problem? Is it a, is it a process problem? What is it that we want to do? And then, we can find the tools in the ecosystem to address that. Applications are not just for recording data, it's for viewing, it's for actioning. If you have a button on screen to kick off a process, or to record a problem, scan a barcode, type in a query, capture a signature, there are all of these different areas that can come together, and it's about putting the tools in the hands of the people who need them, and it is in my experience rarely one tool per role. People talk about monolithic application development. That's not my preference, but maybe it is yours. The ability to have a task in mind as a human being, go, right, I need to do this, and then there is a tool for that, and that tool covers the range of actions to carry out that task. That's kind of how I think about it. And Complete IT will of course bring their expertise and their experience to that conversation. But actually, guys, at the end of the day, it's about what you guys are going to make use of. So that's kind of the end of our Power Apps overview. We're going to do a couple of slides on Power BI, and then we're going to open up to Q&A. Some of you may be familiar with Power BI already, but just as a kind of a quick overview, Power BI is about having this advanced analytics capability, the ability to interrogate your data across platforms, across data storage locations, cloud, on-prem, other providers, bringing that data together, ensuring it is integrated, that it is in context, and then providing the visualizations and the breakdowns and the interrogation capability to understand what is going on in your business. Sorry, I'm not sure if you got another point for this slide as well.
No, absolutely. I think it's kind of really key in a way in terms of getting insights from the platform itself, the integration within the two that we've been speaking about today in terms of Power Apps and Power BI, but also from those other data, also those other kind of data sources that might actually be siloed at the moment as well, being able to kind of bring them all together and effectively knit the information together to give broader insight then at that point. And I think we're all probably familiar with, in business, information quite often is sat in different areas, but to be able to give you that kind of granular picture, as we're seeing with some work that we're undertaking at the moment, is really kind of quite compelling and quite eye-opening at times in terms of seeing that. So
yeah. And once again, Power BI has been created to provide this capability without the huge backlog of resources that it used to take to provide effective dashboarding. This doesn't take a data science team anymore. The system is capable of, through automation and through filtering and through user preferences to surface the insights, to show the trends. And Complete IT will work with you guys to make sure that the dashboards and the reports and the inputs and the outputs are representative of what you're after. What is it that you want to see? What is it you think you don't know? The unknown unknowns are always the hardest to find, but what are the known unknowns? How do we try and surface this kind of information and this data to understand how we can be more successful together? Okay, so what goes into an insight? Well, as we said, it's any data, and I really want to stress any data. The number of connection possibilities for a Power BI system is huge, and that's on purpose, right? Because as Tris said, data is sometimes still siloed. So we want you to be able to bring it together to create this data map, and to be able to see all of your insights in one place. you can then share this, right? Where is it that you need those insights available? Is it just on, full-size desktops and laptops? Do you need mobile devices? Can you surface insights to your people so they can make, the right decisions during their day? Maybe you want to make these visible publicly. Is there data that you wish to show people? That's absolutely an option, just using Power BI. We're going to talk again about integration because it is about bringing everything from everywhere. But the really great thing about this and about the Power Platform, which I should have touched on earlier, but I'm going to pounce on now, is the ability to embed these capabilities in each other, right? So if you've got a Power App and you want to embed a Power BI dashboard in that Power App, you can do that. So now we're talking about data manipulation, recording, and insights without having to change applications. Maybe you need to see, case frequencies or uptimes or process information as part of an application where you're doing other things. You can embed that in that Power App. Likewise, you can embed a Power App inside a Power BI dashboard. So let's say if you are in a dashboard and you are seeing insights and there are maybe particular actions you want to take, things you want to kick off, we're not talking about having to go from the dashboard to an app, back to the dashboard. We can do it all in one place. And that's a really powerful thing to be able to do. It's a simple one, but also exporting the data. If you want to do a PowerPoint slideshow on the insights from a Power BI dashboard, you can export that snapshot in time. And if you've applied filters, if you've isolated the data to just this calendar year or next quarter or a projection for here, it can make visible what those filters are on that output to really help provide that context. Once again, it's a great example of bringing this Microsoft ecosystem together because it is everything. And it is seamless. We're not talking about you having to make new connections. The extensibility comes in here again. The ability to rely on professionals to provide, a professional tier of work, working within this very safe, very easily extendable, natively integrated platform to reduce project times, time to output, and to massively reduce the risk of custom work taking place that then needs to be supported in the future. The ability to define these experiences once again from templates, but as you're making it, you can be using live data. So it means that Complete IT and yourselves can see how this is all coming together. Huge range of visualizations. You can see on screen here there's there's various types of charts. This in its visual sense is by no means exhaustive and highly customizable. Color scheme, sizes, terminology, etc. One of the great things when Power BI first came out was, once again, it shortened this distance to how much work do I need to put in before I'm getting the insights back. And one of the great, fairly recent innovations was called Q&A. And it's where if you have a Power BI data set, you can actually ask it a question like, how many cases were opened in February? Or, what is my pipeline for March? And it will use that terminology. It can isolate the key bits of data, and it can then provide you with an output. It will then use its intelligence to put together a visualization which it thinks is representative of the answer that you're looking for from your question. And that is just one example of the real native intelligence involved in how Power BI accumulates and surfaces data. We have this great support from Azure, from the Power Platform, for bringing in your data. It doesn't matter what size your data is, if it's just internal, all the way up to if you are using data lakes, big data maybe. But to be clear, like with the Power Platform and Power Apps, this scale is available to everyone, and the advantages are available to everyone. And that really is the end of my slides. Thank you very much for listening. I've seen a couple of things pop up in the chat. If you do have any questions, feel free to submit them.
Yeah. So Jordan, we've got some fantastic questions. So thanks everyone for kind of putting those through in the chat. So I think we've covered a couple off during the presentation thus far. So Carmel's got a question, which is, we are looking at CRM for a charity, and I was wondering if a Power Platform is the answer.
I mean, I would always say yes. There are a number of excellent examples of not-for-profit solutions. We know that it works in that sector. Certainly the when we talk about CRM, that term has been expanded a lot over the last few years. I am confident that if you were to work with Complete IT, they would be able to isolate what data you're after, how you want to manipulate it, what are the outputs that you're after, and then ensure that the correct components of the Power Platform are being used. There have been licensing changes recently, which have massively opened up a number of capabilities. So I would certainly say that yes, the Power Platform would enable you to accomplish those tasks that you have in mind.
Excellent, thanks, Jordan. We've got a great one here again from Fran. So Fran's interested in understanding how Power Apps, Power BI, and Power Automate can help support the business processes within her organization, but she's a novice at the moment, so would like to know best way of getting into Power Apps, I suppose, is the long and short of that.
Okay. So Power Apps, Power BI, and Power Automate are fantastic tools for ensuring that data is recorded correctly, that next process steps and actions are understood, that any automation is done to reduce that kind of human repetitive waste of capacity maybe, and then the Power BI for getting the insights. So I can see across 60 plus service areas. The best place to start is always to understand what it is you want to do. You may do things a certain way at the moment. You may do that because the process was formed a year ago, or the business has kind of always run this way. In adopting the Power Platform, it represents a fantastic refresh point to go, what do we want to do? Because it is hugely flexible, hugely extensible. And the tools and the components and the individual parts that Complete IT will help you to understand can always be brought in the right way. So I would say the best place to start is to understand who your roles are in your organization, what tasks they do, what do they accomplish, and what do you want to know. And in doing that exercise, I often find you find where the repetition is, or you find where kind of the logic doesn't quite fit with the real world. I would never go into the adoption of the Power Platform, especially with Power Apps, going, well, this is how we do it today, so let's just replicate that in Power Platform. Because we want you to be able to grow, and we want you to be able to take advantage of these tools. And yeah, the best way to do it is to say, what is it I want to do? How do I provide the services to my customers, and how do I ensure that my organization works efficiently?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more on that, Jordan, to be fair. Just to add to that, in terms of, it's a great opportunity to analyze how the business is working, but not necessarily replicate what a prior process was. In a way, it is all about efficiencies, isn't it, ultimately? So reviewing it and challenging the existing process will hopefully give you a nice vision for the future then at that point. And then that can then be taken forward in terms of looking at whether it's Power BI or Power Apps as a way of kind of overcoming that, or making that kind of process as efficient as possible. So yeah, couldn't agree more in that regard.
I think, is the next question the one from Menley about licenses?
It is indeed, yes.
So Great question. So licensing is always a bigger picture question. So Power BI, so the way that I would consider the licensing here is it's about what users are doing what tasks. If you have advanced users who are generating resources, who need to manipulate data and connections and manage sharing, and are a crucible for Power Platform in your organization, there's a good chance they will require pro licenses, yes. Regular users who are generating insights for themselves, who want to be able to create and view advanced things, most of the time they will require Power BI normal licenses. For viewing and just viewing, Power BI licenses are not always required. If you are posting them to an internal SharePoint, for example, if a user has access to that SharePoint and the sharing permissions on the Power BI dashboard are set to include those groups, you can view that information. Anything more advanced than that, the manipulation of a Power BI dashboard or report, the creation of, usually requires at least a Power BI license. But this guidance is being updated all the time. We can certainly take a look at the licensing guide.
Excellent. Thanks, Jordan. Another great question from Simon. We're considering CRM for a tax advisory practice, use
Cool.
Microsoft 365 extensively, and Xero for accounting. Interested in hearing what Power BI could do for us in this regard.
So Power BI is used for the surfacing of information. That is what it does. If you want to see your metrics, your trends, the analytics, how is what performing and where, that is Power BI down to a T. If you're talking about recording information or data or manipulating information, as you would do in a CRM, that would need a Power App application to do that. Pardon me, but certainly for getting information in from Xero, Power BI, fantastic. Yeah, I know there are connectors for that.
Excellent. Question from Paul. Would a third-party developer use Power Apps for, it's just jumped away on my screen.
For migrating database from AWS for Azure.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Interesting question. I don't think you'd use a Power App for that. The reason I'd say that is, so Power Apps are great for, I'm a user, here is my interface to data and information and actions. That is, it is the top of the funnel of all of the services and information that sits below it, and all the stuff that I need. This is that. This is that tip. This is where it goes. For migrating a database, there are specific tools available. I believe Azure has tools for migrating data from Amazon Web Services. And I know that third parties and Microsoft partners will be familiar with tools for migrating data. I wouldn't say immediately that that's a thing that I would create a Power App to do.
Excellent.
Thank you. Great question.
Thanks, Jordan. Question from Richard: is there a customer presentation to enable us to show how this can assist the customer? I think on this one, there are many kind of use cases out there, in terms of case studies and the like as well, that could be used in that regard to obviously, I suppose, indicate what is possible and maybe what industries have achieved what in terms of being able to use Power Apps within their organizations. But certainly we can pick up this one offline as well if need be, and just work out what the specific requirement is for for what you're wishing to present to a client or customer in that regard. Absolutely. Question from Jim: where is the best place to find instructional videos for Power Apps and Power BI?
Microsoft.com/learn. If you wish to have a better understanding, that is Microsoft's global resource for learning Microsoft tools. It's part of the docs.microsoft.com platform, but the quick link is microsoft.com/learn, and then have a search for Power Apps and Power BI.
Yeah, there's some great videos on that area for sure.
Robert, why is such a large gap between Power BI Pro and Power Apps and Power BI Enterprise License? I would imagine it's because they represent, as understood by Microsoft, two very different types of users, and the way that an organization would delegate tasks and responsibilities to those users in the creation and management of assets. That is the best answer that I can give, outside of directing you to a specific resource that might say, from a corporate perspective, this is why these capabilities are linked to these licenses.
I think Robert's got a second question that follows up on that. Is there a limit on the number of times per day a data source can be refreshed?
There is. Those are updated frequently and can be found on docs.microsoft.com. API limits, call limits can all be the up-to-date numbers can be found on there. I believe there are different limits based on the location of the data and the service used, and you can also buy additional capacity for a number of services where required. And then from Liz, is there a charitable rate for a license? Only one currently. Isn't any of those. I am aware of certain charity rates and not-for-profit rates. I can't recall offhand if there is one for Power BI and at what tier, but certainly Complete IT can help you find that information out.
Yeah, absolutely. We can follow up on that one after the event for sure. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you for that question. I think we've covered off all of those that were within the chat panel. We'll just give it another minute and see if any more kind of come through. Thank you to everyone for kind of placing the questions in there. We appreciate it's a kind of a high level introduction to Power Apps here, and we hope it's really giving you some kind of insight into what's possible, how the different areas, particularly Power BI and Power Apps, kind of sit within the Power Platform. The intention is to obviously do more kind of presentations in the future, so watch out for us kind of posting that out. And thank you to Jordan for his time on this session, and most importantly, thank you for everyone for attending. Really, it's been a pleasure to be able to present. And if you do have any questions, we will send out a subsequent email after the session today with a copy of the recording, and we'll follow up on those particular queries and questions that we said we'd kind of liaise on accordingly then at that stage. So I don't see anything else coming through. Can we get a copy of this as I would like to run again, please? Yeah, that's no problem. We'll send out an email, Richard, with the link to the actual presentation. So that's no problem. Excellent. Okay, well, I think on that note, I'd just like to thank everyone for attending. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for all of your questions, and thank you to Jordan and for Microsoft and on behalf of Complete IT for all of your time. And wish you a lovely rest of the day and rest of the week.
Thank you very much, guys. Yes, I will now stop the recording as well. There we go.
Perfect. Thanks, Jordan.